Welcome, everyone. Today, we're starting a deep dive into the psychology of money.
Yeah, a really fascinating book.
It is, and we're not just going to summarize it. We want to pull out the key ideas,
Right, and then unpack them a bit. Look at some real-world stuff, maybe some research that backs it up.
to give you some practical insights for your own financial life.
For similar podcasts, download the app Dialogue. Link in the description.
Exactly. Let's jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this first part, we're focusing on a few core things,
Okay,
like how our personal histories shape how we think about money,
that's a big one.
and also how new a lot of this modern finance stuff actually is.
Which explains a lot of the confusion, I think.
Totally. Then there's the whole luck versus risk thing.
Always tricky to untangle.
And finally, this idea of knowing when you have enough.
Which sounds simple, but really isn't.
Our goal here is really to get under the surface, understand these forces.
Yeah, because understanding them can be, well, kind of a shortcut to making better choices for yourself.
All right, let's jump in. The book's first big point is that money decisions aren't just about spreadsheets,
No, not at all. They're deeply personal, emotional even.
tied to everything we've experienced.
Exactly. Your own personal history with money is huge. Think about growing up during, say, high inflation versus a boom time.
It completely changes your perspective on saving, on debt, on risk.
For sure. You might be much more cautious or maybe more optimistic just based on that early environment.
So, the key takeaway here for you listening is
It's really about examining your own financial background, your origin story, so to speak.
what were those key moments, times of struggle, times of ease?
Yeah. And what messages did you pick up from family, from the community?
Because those things can stick with you subconsciously.
Definitely. They create these biases that might still be driving your choices now without you even realizing it.
The book gives some great examples, like the long shadow of the Great Depression.
Right, versus someone like JFK, whose family wealth insulated him from that kind of hardship. Very different viewpoints.
Or even comparing countries after World War II, how their experiences shaped national attitudes towards inflation or markets.
And it's not just anecdotes. There's solid research on this.
You mentioned a study.
Yeah, economists Malmendier and Nagel did work showing how macroeconomic experiences, especially during your formative years, like late teens, early 20s, they significantly affect your risk-taking later in life.
So if you lived through a big market crash back then,
You're likely to be more hesitant about stocks even decades later.
wow, even if your financial situation is totally different now.
Exactly. It leaves a deep imprint. So, for you listening, think back. What was the economy like during those crucial years for you?
That really makes you think, doesn't it? Maybe my own comfort level with certain investments
Or your aversion to them?
is tied to something that happened years ago.
It could be. And just recognizing that possibility is powerful.
How so?
Well, it lets you question those ingrained feelings. Are they still relevant? Do they actually serve your goals today?
It's about making the subconscious conscious.
Precisely. So you can make deliberate choices, not just react based on old patterns.
The book also touches on culture, right? Like the lottery ticket example,
Yeah, that's a good one. People with lower incomes tend to buy more tickets.
which on paper looks like a poor financial decision. Low odds.
Right. But if you dig deeper, maybe it's not just about the odds.
What else could it be?
It could represent a tangible shot at a dream, especially if other paths to, say, wealth feel completely blocked off.
So it's about hope, in a way.
It can be. It shows how personal history, culture, societal factors, they all intersect in our financial choices.
So it's about having a bit more empathy, understanding that what looks irrational to me.
Might make perfect sense given someone else's life, their experiences, their hopes.
That's a really important shift. Less judgment, more understanding.
Definitely.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. The book also points out that a lot of the financial world we navigate, it's
I-
actually pretty new.
Yeah, that's a key insight. We treat things like retirement planning or stock investing as if they've been around forever.
But they haven't, really.
Not in their current form for most people. Think about individual retirement accounts.
You mentioned the 401k in the US before we started.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. It wasn't some grand design for retirement.
It was. What, a tax loophole originally?
Kind of, yeah. Back in the late 70s. It only really took off in the 80s.
And before that.
Pensions were much more common. Your employer handled most of it, took on the risk.
So the responsibility shifted massively.
Huge shift. Suddenly, individuals are expected to be savers, investors, risk managers.
Often without much background or training in it.
Exactly. And we see the results. Lots of studies show people feeling unprepared for retirement.
Not because they're lazy, necessarily.
No, often it's just the sheer complexity and, well, the newness of the system they're trying to navigate.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed by, say, saving for retirement or figuring out college funds,
It helps to remember that these are relatively recent challenges for the average person. We're all kind of learning as we go.
that takes some pressure off, I think. It's not just you.
Right. It's okay to feel a bit confused sometimes. The key is to recognize it's new and then seek out the knowledge you need.
Okay, good point. Now, another big theme, luck and risk.
Ah, yes. The invisible twins.
The book argues they play a massive role, much bigger than we often like to admit.
We love stories about pure skill and effort leading to success, don't we?
We do. But reality is messier.
Definitely. Take Bill Gates, obviously brilliant, incredibly driven,
But the book highlights that lucky break he got.
attending Lakeside School, which happened to have a computer terminal in 1968.
Which was incredibly rare.
Almost unheard of. It gave him thousands of hours of programming experience before almost anyone else his age. He even admits how crucial that luck was.
And then the contrast with his friend Kent Evans,
Yeah, equally bright, part of that early group.
but died in a mountaineering accident. Just gone.
It's a stark reminder of risk, how something totally unpredictable can change everything.
So you have extreme luck on one side, extreme risk on the other.
And it makes it really hard, looking back at any success story, to perfectly separate skill from chance.
Think about the old tycoons, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers.
Was it pure genius? Or also being in the right place, maybe bending some rules in a less regulated time?
Or even great investors. How much is skill? How much is catching a lucky wave?
It's almost impossible to quantify precisely. And maybe we don't like thinking about it too much.
Why not?
Well, acknowledging luck feels random. It takes away from the narrative of control, of earning everything purely through merit.
And acknowledging risk is just scary.
Right. Plus, society loves the self-made story. It's less comfortable admitting how much external factors like where you were born or sheer chance can influence outcomes.
So what's the practical advice here, if it's so hard to tell luck from skill?
The book suggests focusing less on the extreme outliers, the huge successes or disastrous failures.
Because those often involve massive doses of luck or risk.
Exactly. Instead, look for broader patterns.
Yeah.
What works for most people, most of the time.
Like consistent saving, diversification.
Sensible strategies. Things that don't rely on winning the lottery, basically.
So apply that to your own life. Are you chasing some wild outlier success?
Or are you building based on reliable principles? It's about focusing on what you can control while acknowledging the things you can't.
Makes sense. It's a more grounded approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this brings us nicely to the last theme for today, which I found really powerful. It's the idea of enough.
Ah, yes. Knowing when to stop moving the goalposts.
The book uses that great little anecdote. Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut at a party.
Right. At some billionaire's house. Vonnegut points out the host made more money in a day than Heller made from Catch-22.
And Heller's reply is classic.
Yes, but I have something he will never have.
Enough.
Enough. Contentment. It's such a profound idea in a world that constantly tells us we need more.
And contrast this with some pretty sobering stories. Rajat Gupta.
Former head of McKinsey, incredibly successful,
And Bernie Madoff.
huge wealth, respected figure, before it all crashed down.
What's the connection?
Both reached incredible heights of wealth and status. They had, by any objective measure, more than enough.
Let's get pushing.
They kept chasing more, crossing ethical and legal lines, driven by, what? Greed, ego, social comparison.
That comparison trap seems huge, always looking at someone who has more.
It's a treadmill, isn't it? You reach one goal, and immediately the next one appears further down the track. It never ends.
Even for people who are already incredibly wealthy.
Absolutely. Madoff's case is mind-boggling. He had a successful, legitimate business for years.
He didn't need to commit fraud.
Apparently not, but the desire to keep up appearances, to deliver impossible returns, maybe just the inability to say stop.
Led to disaster, billions lost, lives ruined.
His own family devastated, his freedom gone, all because he couldn't recognize enough.
So how do we avoid that trap? Especially when society bombards us with more is better.
It starts with defining what enough actually means for you, personally.
And it's not just a dollar figure, right?
No, it's deeper than that. What level of financial security lets you live the life you value? What truly brings you contentment?
Is it time with family? freedom to pursue interests, peace of mind.
Exactly. Identify those things. Then align your financial goals to support that life, not some abstract, ever-increasing number.
And think about what you're not willing to risk.
Crucial point. Your reputation, your freedom, your relationships, your health.
Are you potentially sacrificing those invaluable things in the pursuit of just more money?
That's the question to ask. Knowing your enough point helps you protect what truly matters.
It's about shifting from an external chase to an internal sense of satisfaction.
That's a great way to put it. Finding contentment with what you have once your core needs and desires are met.
So, wrapping up this part of our deep dive, we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, some fundamental ideas from the psychology of money.
How our past shapes our present financial views.
The newness of the financial world we're in.
The huge, often hidden roles of luck and risk.
And that really critical countercultural idea of finding your enough.
Now, this has been, an analytical discussion. We've explored these ideas with examples.
But it really does just scratch the surface of what's in the book itself.
Absolutely. If these themes resonated, we definitely encourage you to read The Psychology of Money.
You'll get a much fuller picture, more nuance, more stories. It's a very readable book.
And this is just the first part of our series on it. We'll be back to explore more insights.
Looking forward to it.
So, a final thought for you to take away. Pick one area of your financial life, investing, spending, your goals, whatever, and just think, how could understanding these forces, your history, the system's newness, luck, risk, or what's enough for you, how could that shift your perspective or help you make a better decision next time?
That's a great exercise, something to really mull over. And for similar podcasts, download the app Dialogue, link in the description.